this is Jovanka from JovankaCiares.com. If you're like I was a few months ago, you kind of know what some of these crazy labels in the foods that you eat mean, but some others you just assume and you go along with it, right? Because who the heck has time to learn all this stuff, especially when the labeling system is highly unregulated, abused by the food industry, and changes like the weather depending on which lobbying group puts more money on the table. Well, guess what? I am the one that has the time, and it is my job to teach you these kinds of stuff. I have the time to figure these things out because even if you eat mostly unprocessed foods, there's a lot of stuff in these labels that you may not know or understand. And since I know that you're a conscious rebel wellness warrior, it is important that you're educated regarding what it means when someone is selling you something that they claim to be cage-free or all-natural. So let me go through some of the most commonly used food labels to find out what they are and what they truly mean. All-natural. This means nothing. Then the FDA doesn't regulate that term, and it is technically not considered an official label, so it could be mostly artificial and they will still slap the all-natural label on. Chances are, when you see something like Frito-Lay saying all-natural, it may have one natural ingredient and about a dozen artificial ones, and it will still be called by marketers all-natural. This is an extremely overused term by anyone and everyone. It means nothing. GMO. This means genetically modified or genetically engineered organisms, and this applies to animals and to plants as well. These are genes that are kind of intertwined from one organism to another, like corn and soy, for example, are one of the most common GMO crops out there, with about 90% of soy grown in the US has these herbicide-tolerant genes that were added to the plants. Tomatoes, strawberries have also been GMOs, and the number of crops continue to go on the rise. There have been studies that show that GMO can cause an array of problems in your endocrine and your neurological systems in both humans and in the animals that you consume and you eat every day. These GMOs have been banned in over a dozen countries, and the US is doing a really bad job at waging that battle against these multinational corporations that don't want you to know if a crop has been genetically modified. And my question is, if it is not that bad for you, why won't they want you to know? Organic. This is one of the best defines of all of the food terms out there, because there's specific terms that are applied to things like how the crops are rotated and how the land is treated and pest control and things like that. There are specifications for animal products, and there's also specification for crops and even for household products. So to be certified organic, manufacturers need to abide by the rules that are set forth by the USDA. And while I do not expect you to believe everything that the USDA says, this is actually a pretty good one. And it is important for you to know because organic foods are grown with a little less pesticides and fertilizers, and they have less negative effects on your body than conventional crops. Sustainable. This really means nothing as well. If you ask about 10 experts, you'll get 10 different answers. Even the USDA has stopped trying to define it. So if a product is labeled sustainable, you might want to assume that it's all of it or nothing at all. And you might want to find other ways to find out if the product is healthy and is the right choice for you. Free range. Technically, this means that animals have access to the outdoors, but in practice, this is not the case. And this is not the case because there's no stipulations for how long the animals spend exposed to the outdoors, which is where they should be, nor what the heck outdoors actually mean. There could very well be like a big concrete building, or there may be a tiny little door in one corner of the barn that most animals will never even have access or even know is there. This is important for you to know because you may be paying a premium for free-range products and thinking that you're actually doing the right thing to lessen the suffering of animals, when in fact, it's just the same. Local. Well, this depends on who you ask. In 2008, there was a law that's called the Farm Act that defines it as crops being grown within 4 miles or even within state limits, which is kind of crazy because if you look at states like California or Texas, which are huge, So there's other stores like Whole Foods, for example, which defines it as foods that's traveling in no more than 5 or 6 hours by train or car. Now this is important because shorter travel times on the foods that you consume will reduce your carbon footprint, as the food requires a lot less energy, i.e. oil, to get to your plate. Cage-free. This means that birds are not confined to cages, but instead they're allowed to roam around and spread their wings. The problem is that it is not required that they have access to fresh air or the outdoors. And also, most of these birds actually, their beaks are amputated without anesthetic to keep them from pecking at each other because they get really, really stressed out. So this situation is a little bit better than the standard way, but it is less than ideal. Biodynamic. This is actually my favorite term. Biodynamic means that the foods must be grown according to the original view of farming, which includes, among other things, no pesticides and no fertilizers. In fact, the farm must contribute to the health of the land instead of depleting its nutrients. Duh! And they must observe these standards for at least 3 years in order to be considered biodynamic. You may also hear other terms like Demeter or Stella farms, and they all more or less also means biodynamic. Now this is the best possible labeling because it goes beyond organic and it expects the farms to actually cause the least possible damage to the land and to the water sources. So tell me, was there one or two of these that you had no idea what it meant? And did you think something meant something but now you realize that it means something else? Let me know in the comments below. Share this video with at least 3 of your friends because they too deserve to know. And for more great tips on how to live a healthy, happy, and beautiful life, sign up for my weekly newsletter at JovankaCiares.com. See you soon.